So we're being joined today by the Chair and Minority Vice Chair of the House Appropriations Committee, Representative Bollin, Representative Joe Tate. Thank you guys for being here. Really excited to hear where we're going. And with this, Jerome, it's your show.
All right. Thank you very much. Welcome to the both of you. We're just going to ramble about this little thing called the budget. I know maybe some of the people watching have heard about it. First of all, let me ask you, just where do you see things right now?
Well, I think we're on the right track to deliver a real budget based on real dollars for the people across the state of Michigan. Public safety, investing money in education, cutting the waste, making sure that we have property tax reform, making life more affordable for people across the state.
All right, Representative Tate.
Likewise, I think we're seeing a lot of discourse around the budget, as it should be. With the legislature, you have 148 members, and then you have the governor as well too. But we're on the right track. I mean, there's a lot of conversations that are going on, but really excited about what we can do, and looking forward to working on and through this final product.
Well, let's cut to the chase right now, and we'll get to a lot of chases over the course of the next 14 minutes or so. What are obstacles that you see right now that it will take bipartisanship to hurdle?
Well, I think when we look at the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference, we see that we have over $1 billion, $1.2 billion, where we have to find savings there. I think that's going to be a conversation, because obviously we have different philosophies, different priorities in terms of where we want to go with the budget, and just making tough choices about how we're going to fill those gaps there. So I think that'll be one area that we're going to have to find common ground on, and the debates will be lively.
They will be spirited, that's for sure. But at the end of the day, we know that there's a certain amount of money that we have that's discretionary. A lot of it is restricted, and we know what we have to do. We also have to, while we have to save and we have to cut, I don't think we have to gut the budget to cut. I think we need to spend more wisely and reestablish our priorities. We know we have to institute the work requirements, some Medicaid reforms. We want to make sure that we're investing in more literacy. And this is where I think the conversation becomes the most spirited, where, you know, do we cut or do we increase the revenue? And our goal is, I believe we can do it without increasing revenue.
All right, without naming any names or indicating any sort of personalities, sort of give us an understanding of how those conversations go, because, you know, most of the people watching us right now are not in the rooms that you're in when it comes time to trying to reach these agreements. So what does one of those conversations sound like? Where does it begin and where does it go?
Well, sometimes in the room is absolute silence, which can be a lot of wasted time. So my experience last year was that there is an awful lot of time we spend in the room saying absolutely nothing and just being silent. Now, I think that what we've done over the past year is we've had a lot more conversations. We've talked about our bold ideas. Certainly I have a partner in Representative Joe Tate here as the new Minority Vice Chair. And so I think that, you know, we'll have continue to have fruitful conversations. We have to be disciplined in our conversations. We've identified some big things. These are common goals that we have. So I think that we can get it done.
Okay.
And I agree. And what we see in the public as well too, we have, you know, both the chambers, the House, the Senate, they report their budgets, what they want to see, and it shows where their priorities are at, and obviously the governor as well too. So that's kind of the public facing side. But as we do get through these conversations, the chair is in the room more often than I am, but we've both been doing this for a number of years. So we start to see, you know, understand, okay, time is of the essence as well too, but making sure that I think priorities are reflected in the budget. So I think you see what we see publicly through committees and through the budgets that we report. And then really, as the chair mentioned, discipline around having those conversations before we reach an agreement, we'll start to pick up.
Where do you see things as different or having changed in the past, as opposed to last year or 2 years ago? What's changed as far as working together to get something done? Has anything changed?
Well, I'd say a lot has changed in the last year. We know, Speaker Tate and I, we came in at the same time. In 2019, it was, divided government. Then we moved to trifecta, and now we're back at divided government. And I think we showed last year that as we transitioned, we had bold leadership in the House with the governor. We got some of this big goal of putting money into our roads done. And I think that we've kind of built a path forward that we're going to continue on that. The conversations, I would say out there, this is all about a quest for common ground, but I think that there is a lot more common ground in the Capitol and in that chamber than people realized. Many of the things we do try to work on, even if what you're hearing is sound bites on the outside, we know we want to make life more affordable. It's a matter of, it's maybe different how we want our kids to be able to read. We're 44th in the country. These are things that, the sound bites are bigger than really the bitterness and the discord.
So let me ask you, with regard to that, where are we as the voters, the people watching TV, listening to radio about what you're doing? What are we getting wrong? What are we not seeing about how you're trying to make things work?
I don't think it's the voters or Michigan citizens are getting anything wrong. I think when we look at our chamber in the House, there are 110 members. In the Senate, there are 38. So everyone has different ideas to attack the problem. As was mentioned, the chair mentioned, affordability, making sure that our kids can read and write. We're also talking about making sure, around health and safety. Those are things that we all, I think, agree on. It's just differences on how to approach it. I think that's where, the conversations come in. Again, lively and spirited at times, but we all want to get to the same place. So I think that's where we have different ideas. If two people have the same ideas, that's not even the case. Not even in our caucuses as well too. So I don't think there's voters getting anything wrong. I just think that everyone takes it from a different place to find a solution.
Let me ask you about, sometimes some tough choices need to be made to get to a place where the budget is going to work. Talk to me about how you think about tough choices, and then I'm going to ask you the same question right afterwards.
Absolutely. So I think when we look at tough choices, we just say these are, the dollars that we're able to deploy, and see we have a number of priorities, and usually there are more priorities than what we have. Over the past several years, we've been fortunate to have, more funds with the federal government and with some other, revenue sources that we've been able to generate, but that's not the case right now. So it's the budget has contracted for several reasons. I think for good reasons as well too. So I think the tough choices come into play when we say, okay, we've been able to support this X line item, but now we're getting to a place that it might not look the same as in past years, and that makes that tough. Even if it's a good program and that it's been able to work in the end and support Michigan residents.
And let me ask you about that, about the idea of budget discipline, and maybe I would love to have a $90,000 car, but that's not going to happen. How do you think about that?
Well, I look at it as going back to basics. So I look at it as, what are we constitutionally required as a state government to provide? What are we required by statute? And then what is a priority and what is a preference? All right. And always remembering where the dollar comes from. and trying to do that in scaling into a size that fits our budget. You have to understand, we blew through roughly a $9 billion budget balance that really wasn't realistic. I refer to it as manna from Washington. It wasn't realistic to think that money was always going to be printed. It was always going to come our way, and we spent it quite recklessly. So that's why our budget calls for investment in the rainy day fund, no new investments, but making sure we're shoring up the work requirements, literacy, continuing investment in infrastructure, cutting property taxes, and those are the things that will matter to the most people across the state. We have to certainly think of our economy. You know, we're nothing if we don't have a strong and robust economy here in the state. So making it a place where people want to do business, cutting the regulations and the red tape is another priority. And I think we've been transformative last year in being able to kind of move the needle, and just need to continue on that course.
All right, we've got about 3.5 minutes left. I want to ask you a little bit more about moving the needle. If you think about where we're going to be in a year, 2 years, are we doing enough to get where you want to go? Do we need to do a lot more to get where you want to go budget-wise? How do you feel about it? And then I'll ask you that same question.
Well, I think that we have to be very realistic, all right, and spend the money. We found, thousands of ghost employees last year. There are still more to cut. Those are unfilled FTEs. When I say we don't have to gut it, we just have to cut it, reset our priorities. I think that's restricted funds. We just saw we have $14 billion in these work projects that are just sitting, they're stashed away, the department's slush funds. That money has to be, pulled back and either given back to the taxpayers or spent on the program. So we're going to have to continue to cut. We're going to have to be mindful, but we also are going to have to invest in a future that's bright, that people want to live here, they want to work here, they want to go to school here.
Very good. Representative Tate?
I think what we're seeing too is the state of Michigan doesn't work in the silo as well. I mean, so obviously we've seen the impacts of HR 1 from Washington, D.C. So I think seeing the next 1 or 2 years is how are we going to make sure that, those that require health care have that, those that can put food on the table can have that as well too, because just thinking about those basics. So looking at and figuring out what creative solutions that we can have and that we can deploy through the budget to ensure that those basics are taken care of. And I think we can get in a good place, and that can allow us to have continued conversations about what the progress of the state should look like.
One of the conversations, you mentioned it just a little bit ago, is about education, really about education. I spoke to a university professor and a university provost this morning, and they're worried about budget cuts. How does that play with needing to be disciplined and at the same time considering what the universities need to retain students, to attract more students to Michigan that will stay in Michigan?
That's a great question. We may be on the opposite side, but I view it as our universities they're not only workforce development drivers, economic drivers. We have to make sure that we're doing it right. Our universities are doing it right, but also, those investments are important. I mean, and when you look at universities such as MSU or others, I mean, they were founded and they're baked into the Constitution, into state legislation. So it was important, a century, 150 years ago. I think it still should remain important.
All right, you get the last 35 seconds.
Well, thank you. I think that our universities have to get back to educating our kids. I think there's been too much emphasis in some ways. No offense to All-State Joe Tate, but on the athletics, and I'd like to see that we're encouraging and supporting Michigan students to go on to our public universities. Each one of our public universities is a really strong attribute to the community nearby and to our state. We certainly want to have wise investments in them, but we also need to make sure it's wise use of taxpayer dollars, and it should go for Michigan students.
Thank you both for joining me this afternoon. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.